Hello everyone, this video goes through the story of Red Dead Redemption 2 and 1. In May 1899, after a failed ferry heist in the thriving port town of Blackwater, Dutch Van der Linde and his gang are forced to flee the area and attempt to cross the snowy mountains north to avoid the law, leaving their substantial money stashed behind. The gang set up camp in the deserted mining town of Coulter as a temporary shelter. Letting the exhausted gangsters take a rest in the shelter, Dutch and two of his men, Arthur Morgan and Michael Bell, go out to find again some food and supplies. They find a homestead holding a party, but soon realize the party is hosted by O'Driscolls, one of their rival gangs. The trio defeats them and find Sadie Adler, a widow whose husband was killed by O'Driscolls. They take Sadie under their wing. In order to fund the escape south, Dutch has the gang rob a train belonging to the wealthy oil magnate Leviticus Cornwall. A furious and vengeful Cornwall then hires the Pinkerton Detective Agency, who send agents Andrew Milton and Edgar Ross to apprehend the gang. Realizing that progress of civilization is ending the time of outlaws, Dutch and the gang decide to gather up enough money to retire and escape law for good. The gang relocates south to the state of New Hanover, and again perform numerous jobs and heists to gather enough money, as Dutch continually promises one last big heist that will secure their freedom. However, in the town of Valentine, Dutch is spotted by Leviticus Cornwall, who once captured Dutch and his men for revenge on his train loss. After a deadly shootout with Cornwall's men, the gang is forced to relocate again in order to prevent their camp to be discovered. In Rhodes, they meet Grace and Braithwaite's, two rival families potentially holding Civil War gold. The gang works for both families to pit them against each other, but their actions are discovered, resulting in an ambush by the Grace that kills Sean, and the Braithwaites kidnapping John's son Jack. The gang slaughters both families in retaliation, and learn that Jack has been sold to crime lord Angelo Bronte. Dutch, John, and Arthur head to Bronte's mansion in Saint Denis to confront him and retrieve Jack. Realizing that Dutch's gang is willing to put down anyone for cause of Jack, Bronte concedes. He let John and Arthur do a job for him to eliminate some graveyard robbers and retrieve their treasure. After that, Jack is returned, and all the gangsters have a happy night. Then Dutch and his men are invited to a high society party in which they discover an opportunity to rob a city bank. Bronte gives Dutch a note, which indicates that there is a large amount of money in the trolley station, but when Dutch and his men break in and rob it, they find no money at all, only being surrounded by timely arriving police forces, which reveal this actually to be a trap. After safely escaping on a derailed trolley, Dutch finds a local who helps them sneak through the swamp and attacks surprisingly Bronte's mansion in retaliation. They kill all Bronte's men and kidnap Bronte onto a boat. When Bronte continues to humiliate Dutch despite his predicament, he is fetched to the alligators in the swamp. At this point, Dutch has grown convinced that there's no future for the gang in the United States, and leads them into a Saint Denis bank robbery to gather enough money in order to move overseas. With Hosea distracting the police, the robbery goes smooth at first. However, the Pinkertons intervene, and Agent Milton captures and executes Hosea in front of the gang. A shootout ensues, in which Lenny is killed and John is arrested. Arthur, Dutch, Bill, Harvey, and Michael merely escape onto a ship. Unfortunately, the ship is sunk by a torrential storm that night, and the men are forced to jump into the sea and then washed ashore the island of Guam, where they become embroiled in a war between the tyrannical sugar plantation owners and enslaved local population. The group successfully aids the revolution against the plantation owners and secures transport back to the United States. Then the group reunites with the rest of the gang, who has moved to a small village north of Saint Denis. After fending off the Pinkerton assault on the camp, Dutch becomes paranoid that a gang member is working as an informant, causing their failures. After relocating again, Dutch obsesses over one last heist. Although he insists that he must wait, Arthur and Sadie disobey him to rescue John Marston from the penitentiary. Soon after, Dutch manipulates a local Native American tribe into conflict with the United States Army to draw attention away from the gang, against Arthur's wishes, who has gradually grown a friendship with local Aboriginal people. Little by little, Dutch begins to doubt Arthur's loyalty, in part facilitated by Michael's manipulations, who has eagerly taken Hosea's role as Dutch's right-hand man. Meanwhile, Arthur becomes concerned that Dutch is no longer the man he knew, increasingly resorting to murder and paranoia, and abandoning their ideals. He later discovered that he has contracted tuberculosis while collecting debt from a deceased farmer, Thomas Downs, giving him only short time to live. Faced with his own mortality, Arthur reflects on his actions and how to protect the gang following his death. Several gang members become disenchanted and leave, while Dutch and Michael arrange one final heist of an army payroll train. Arthur convinces John that following the heist he must leave and start a new life with his family. Dutch later finds and murders Leviticus Cornwall, blaming him for the Pinkertons' actions. Arthur's faith in Dutch is finally shattered when he leaves John for dead during the heist, and refuses to rescue Abigail when she is captured by Milton. With Sadie's help, Arthur disobeys Dutch's orders and rescues Abigail. During the rescue, he is ambushed by Milton, who reveals that Michael has been working as an informant for the Pinkertons since their return from Guam, before he is killed by Abigail. Before Arthur heads back to camp to confront Michael, he tells the women to leave for safety, bidding them farewell. The gang finally collapses when Arthur and John both return to camp, openly accusing Michael and Dutch of betrayal. Dutch, Bill, Javier, and Michael turn on John and Arthur when the Pinkertons arrive, but all six manage to flee into the wilderness. Arthur accepts his fate and buys John time to escape by confronting the Pinkertons alone. But he is ambushed by Michael, who engages into a mortal duel with him. When both men are beaten and severely injured, Dutch intervenes. He is convinced by Arthur and abandons Michael and leaves alone. Afterwards, Arthur succumbs to his illness in peace under the sunrise. Years later, John is attempting to lead an honest life and provide a living for Abigail and their son, Jack. Finding work at a local ranch, John is forced to fight back against a group of outlaws threatening his employer. Believing that John will never escape his old life, Abigail leaves with Jack. In order to convince Abigail he's changed, John buys a plot of land with the intention of turning it into a ranch. He reunites with surviving gang members, Uncle and Charles, who help him build his ranch. Upon Abigail's return, John proposes to her. But Sadie Adler soon shows up with information leading to Michael's location. Against Abigail's wish, John, wanting revenge for Arthur's death, leaves with his friends to hunt down Michael. After arriving at Michael's camp, Charles and Sadie are wounded by his men, forcing John to continue alone. After gunning down several of Michael's men, John confronts Michael himself. With Sadie's help, John makes Michael disarmed, but he is soon shocked to discover that Dutch is also there, and Michael uses this opportunity to break free, holding Sadie hostage. However, Dutch shoots Michael, allowing John to finish him off. With Michael dead, Dutch takes his leave without words. Returning to his ranch, John formally marries Abigail, and they both look forward to living a new life on their ranch. Meanwhile, Agent Ross, now working for the Bureau of Investigation, discovers Michael's corpse. He and his partner Archer Forden follow the trail to John's ranch. A few months later, John is arrested and he arrives in Blackwater alongside government agents Edgar Ross and Archer Forden. The agents escort John to a train which is destined to Armadillo, a town located in the territory of New Austin. His goal is to capture or kill his former gang partner, Bill Williamson. John's wife and son have been kidnapped by the federal agents and threatened with their freedom if he does not comply. He heads out and meets Williamson at Fort Mercer, but after some conversation with him, John is shot by Williamson's men and is left wounded. Bonnie McFarlane and his ranch hand, Amos, found him the next morning, treat his wounds and provide him lodging in exchange for his help on their ranch. While Marston works at the ranch, he also spends some time helping the people of Armadillo and the surrounding area. He meets the town's marshal, Leigh Johnson, and helps him to deal with local criminals. He encounters merchant Nigel West Dickens and saves his life on his journey. Marston tells Dickens about his mission of eliminating Williamson. Dickens promises to help him in return. He introduces Marston to two new guys, alcoholic Irish and crazed prospector Seth Byers. With Irish help, Marston steals a machine gun from local gang, which serves as a powerful weapon when they later confront Williamson. Williamson finds out that Marston is living at McFarlane's ranch, so his gang burns the barn and kidnaps Bonnie. Marston has a tough fight with Williamson's men to eventually save Bonnie from being hanged to death. Realizing that the confrontation is inevitable, Marston recruits Marshal Johnson, Dickens, Irish, and Seth to breach Fort Mercer, Williamson's main base of operations. Seth helps to infiltrate inside first, and Dickens hides Marston and a machine gun in his carriage. The Trojan horse strategy works well. Marston, Marshall, and Irish massacre a gangster inside, but finding Williamson gone, as he and Harvey Escuela, another outlaw in Vanderlyn's gang with Marston, have already fled to Nuevo Paraíso in Mexico the previous day. Irish takes Marston to Mexico, where they are ambushed on the way in. Marston works with Colonel Allende, a dictator, in several battles, and his captain Vicente de Santa in the hope of gaining their support of capturing Williamson and Escuela. During his journey, Marston meets an older man, Landon Ricketts. Ricketts was a legendary American gunslinger at his time, and is now living a secluded life in Mexico. The two together manage to save a Mexican young girl, Luisa, whose fiancé is Abraham Reyes, the leader of local Revolutionary Army, who has been captured by the government. Luisa begs Marston to save him. Touched by Luisa's sincere love, Marston agrees and saves Reyes from execution. But this feat has angered Allende, who thinks that Marston is helping the rebels. Then he and Captain De Santa lures Marston to a church, by lying that Williamson and Escuela are captured there. Upon arriving at church, Marston is knocked out and then put to execution. Reyes and his rebels appear and save Marston. After this, Marston has no other choice but to join Reyes' rebel army. They manage to find Escuela in Presidio. They raise the footholds, and Marston captures him, giving him back to Agent Ross and Forden. Reyes is again captured by Allende. Marston goes to rescue him. Luisa sacrifices herself to distract the soldiers ready to execute Reyes, and Marston takes this opportunity to shoot them, rescuing Reyes. The two proceed to attack the villa in Escuela, which results in the overthrow of Allende. Allende escapes with one of the prisoners, who is Williamson himself. Marston and Reyes catch up with them and kill them both. Marston then returns to Blackwater. He reports to Agent Ross that Williamson is dead and demands to be reunited with his family. Ross refuses and asks more from Marston. Dutch Vanderlyn, the leader of Marston's former gang, was seen appearing in the area. Marston is asked to kill him as the final task. Dutch had joined with the local American Indian population to fight against the US Army and other lawmen. Agent Forden has an informant inside who is compromised. Marston and Forden rescues him on a ship and then sends him to Dr. Harold McDougal, who helps to save his life. This informant is a Native American, Nastas. He helps Marston to find a Dutch's gang hideout in the mountain. Marston sneaks inside, but is shot by Dutch while spying on him. Nastas and Dr. McDougal save Marston's life, but when he plans to launch a negotiation with Vanderlyn's gang, Nastas is shot in the head. After this, Marston helped Dr. McDougal to flee for the east, while he himself stays to continue to confront Dutch. At last, Dutch is spotted robbing a local facility, and Marston and Agent Ross and Forden rushes to besiege the building. They killed several gangsters, but when they break in, Dutch is found holding a hostage at gunpoint. Marston tries to reason with him, but Dutch kills the hostage before escaping. Eventually, the army is dispatched to help in attacking Vanderlyn's hideout. Marston joins them in a long, cruel battle, at the end of which the army breaks into Dutch's stronghold, which holds Dutch in a last-ditch defense. Marston breaks the defense and confronts Dutch on the cliff. Dutch explained that both he and Marston have outlived their usefulness in a rapidly progressing world. Faced with the choice of cooperating or being shot by Marston, Dutch commits suicide by falling backwards off the cliff. Fulfilling his duty, Agent Ross releases Marston's family and they are reunited. The family spends time together at their ranch. They acquire cattle from McFarlane's ranch and break wild horses for use. John also takes his son Jack out on several hunting trips. However, the family's happiness is interrupted when Agent Ross leads a surprise attack of the ranch, killing Uncle in the process. John defends the ranch and kills many men. Outnumbered, he tells Jack and his wife Abigail to run, while he fends off Ross and the army. Surrounded by the army, John emerges from his hiding place in the barn and attempts to kill as many men as he can. He hits only several of them before they open fire. John is hit multiple times in the chest, legs, and arms by the bullets. He gasps for breath and then falls to the ground, dead. In a crowd of agents and soldiers, Edgar Ross is standing there, who lights a cigar and then leaves the barn. Jack and Abigail hear the gunfire and then return to the barn, where they find John's body. Several years later, a grown Jack Marston returns and buries his mother beside his father. Jack sets out on the quest of revenge against Ross. He hears of Edgar Ross's retirement from an agency for Blackwater. From a government staff, Jack learns about Ross's whereabouts. He finds Ross's wife, who tells Jack that Edgar has gone on a hunting trip on the St. Louis River with his brother. Jack travels to the river where he finds Ross hunting ducks. The two exchange heated words, with Jack accusing Ross of murdering his father. Ross tells Jack that his father killed himself with the life he led, and he will kill Jack if he doesn't run off. Jack says that he isn't going anywhere, and the two have a deal. Ross is shot dead, and his body falls into the river. Jack mournfully looks at his revolver, holsters the gun, and then walks into the sunset, seemingly committed to the sort of lawless life his father never wanted for him.